Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 271 of the current situation. And there's some good news today, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. A big thanks to people that supported the channel by giving a donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, as I said, there is some good news today regarding the health crisis, and it is that the cumulative incidence rate of COVID-19 in Spain has fallen below 200 cases, the lowest number since August the 31st. Spain has managed to lower the cumulative incidence of the coronavirus in the last 14 days below the barrier of 200 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, specifically down to 193.26, a figure that had not been reached since August 31st. The good news comes just after the Constitution long weekend, although a possible increase in infections derived from these 4 days would not be observed for another 7 to 10 days. However, the good news is still relative. Despite confirming the downward trend, the incidence was 215.1 cases on Monday, and on Tuesday the Health Department did not release its daily report. The incidence rate does not drop equally in all the territories, and in fact it has skyrocketed in the Canary Islands, where it has risen to 93.48 cases, 22 more than on Monday. The incidence rate in the other archipelago, the Balearic Islands, has also risen by 5 points to 227.59. So there we go, some good news there on mainland Spain, with the average incidence rate coming down, but unfortunately increasing on both the Balearic Islands and the Canary Islands. Now, the different autonomous communities here in Spain are announcing their Christmas measures. As we know, the measures are going to be different depending on where you are in Spain. And we can see here from this headline, Spanish regions announce new coronavirus measures for Christmas season. Valencia's is to keep its borders sealed until January the 15th, while the Canary Islands will let visitors enter with an antigen test instead of a PCR. In the Valencia region, authorities have said that the borders will remain closed until January the 15th. Travel will only be permitted on December the 23rd, 24th, 25th and the 31st, and on January the 1st for visits to relatives and allegados. And the Canary Islands have said that they will allow foreign tourists to travel to the islands with an antigen test instead of the PCR test that the central government recently made into a requirement for coming to Spain. The regional decree goes into effect on Thursday, despite the fact that it contradicts central government regulations on international travel to the country. The Canary Islands have been posting a much lower incidence rate than the mainland, and the tourism sector is keen to save the high season, which begins now. So some important information for people planning to travel to the Canary Islands over the Christmas break. You no longer need a PCR test. An antigen test will suffice. And the government has also announced changes to the PCR test requirement for mainland Spain. We can see here that these are the 3 changes in the PCR test to enter Spain that come into effect this Thursday. From this Thursday, arrivals to Spain through airports and seaports from risk countries, in addition to a negative PCR test, this result can be accredited with a TMA molecular test, and children under the age of 6 are exempt from the obligation to prove that they do not suffer from COVID-19. And the other major change is that the results will also be accepted in French and German, and not only English and Spanish, which were the only 2 languages that were permitted up until now. Now, as we all know, here in Spain, we're still trying to figure out just how many people lost their lives during the peak of the pandemic earlier in the year. Some new data has come to light, and we can see here that the INE, or the Statistics Institute, has dismantled government data and computes 45,684 deaths from the coronavirus until the month of May. The excess mortality in March, April and May was 47,105 deaths, of which 97% were due to COVID-19. So some new statistical data there contradicting the official data from the government, and close to 46,000 people losing their lives in the months of March, April and May due to the coronavirus. Now let's have a look at the health situation here in Spain by looking at a map of the country and some autonomous communities. We'll start here with a map of the country as a whole. We can see that the risk level is high, the total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 193.26. Deaths in the last 7 days from COVID, 700. There are 12,158 COVID patients hospitalised around the country, and there are 2,179 patients in ICUs with COVID, which is just under 23% of all ICUs in Spain. The Valencian community now, we can see that the risk level is extreme, the total amount of cases, the AI rate for the last 14 days, 194. We can see that there have been 61 deaths in the last 7 days, 1,260 patients currently hospitalized in the Valencian community with COVID. There are 252 patients in ICUs, which is exactly 25% of all ICUs in Valencia. And finally here, the Canary Islands, we can see that the risk level is still low, the total amount of cases, but let's have a look at the new cases here, 740, diagnosed in the last 24 hours, 103. The accumulated incidence rate has gone up to 93.48 as we saw before. There have been 7 COVID deaths over the last 7 days. There are 265 COVID patients currently hospitalized, and there are 45 COVID patients in ICUs, which is just over 10% of all ICUs in the Canary Islands. So quite an increase there in cases in the Canary Islands, which is a bit of a surprise because last time we looked at a map of the Canary Islands, they had 0 cases. So something strange happening with the statistics and the data in that particular part of Spain. I wonder why. Now some more news on the former King of Spain, Juan Carlos, and the good news is that he has decided to fork up the cash and pay back the Treasury 678,000 euros to regularise the use of opaque cards. The Emeritus King presents a voluntary declaration and pays the debt of the funds received from the Mexican San Ginés Kraus. The defence team of Juan Carlos I has presented this Wednesday a voluntary declaration before the Treasury for the amount of 678,393 euros, including interest and surcharges, in the case of the so-called opaque cards. The Emeritus King thus regularizes the funds received in recent years by the Mexican businessman Alan San Ginés Kraus, and which he spent using allegedly an Air Force Colonel Nicolas Murga Mendoza as a frontman. So dodgy credit cards, dodgy funds from a Mexican businessman, and a dodgy frontman. What type of example is the former King of Spain giving to the Spanish public? Now we all know that the American company Amazon has a fairly big presence here in Spain, a very, very popular online commerce platform here in Spain, but 2 particular areas in Spain have decided to challenge Amazon and set up their own online platforms. We can see here that Mojithon, or how an Andalusian town stands up to Jeff Bezos to save trade. The City Council of Minas del Rio Tinto Huelva has launched a free online sales platform to facilitate purchases in town businesses as an alternative to Amazon. And another platform, Bolazon, is born, an internet platform to support damaged shops in Toledo. The penalties of local commerce due to the pandemic have led Francisco Galdon to create Bolazon, a platform for small businesses in the city of Toledo that will begin to be operational on the internet this Christmas. I had to find some way to give them a hand, says the creator of the self-proclaimed Amazon of Toledo, who has played with the adjective bolo, with which the natives of the capital of Castilla-La Mancha are known. So there we go, a couple of local startups deciding to challenge Amazon here in Spain, and a good initiative to support local business. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. One here from Brendan. They can't put a policeman in each home, but they'd do it if they could. Yeah, Brendan, thanks for the comment. Obviously related to the words from the Health Minister, Mr. Ear, the other day, when he said that they can't put a policeman in everybody's home, and therefore people need to be responsible this Christmas and not have big celebrations. But I don't think they would, even if they could do something like this. Spain is not a police state. I've seen lots of comments over the last few months saying that it is, saying that the police here in this country are very heavy-handed. We've had this discussion before. I don't think that to be the case. But as we have seen in recent times, there's lots of illegal parties going on. There's lots of legal get-togethers going on, especially among some of the younger members of the population. They love to party. They don't like to let anything stand in their way, not even a pandemic the size of this one. So again, individual responsibility and common sense are going to be fundamental this Christmas time here in Spain. One here from Tony. Hi Stuart, we sometimes log into a local chat forum. It's called Talk Quesada. People very often ask questions and ask for advice. Today someone asked if anyone knew of a doctor who spoke English as they were coming over shortly. What they failed to realise is that you go to your local clinic, you cannot pick and choose. More importantly, my wife suggested they learn a little basic Spanish. It isn't difficult and it will be appreciated. To expect doctors or anyone else for that matter to speak English is, we feel, very rude. On the costas, there are many different languages spoken. Are Spaniards expected to learn all of them? The reply my wife got was mind your own business. Of course, she laughed at the sheer stupidity of the reply. Life will no doubt be full of complaints because no one speaks English. In actual fact, most do, but you need to speak to them first in Spanish. Yeah, Tony, thanks for the comment. Sorry to see that your wife had an unpleasant experience yesterday in that chat forum with a rude reply. You said she handled it well, so I might ask her if she's able to moderate the comment section on these videos. But you're 100% right. If you come to Spain, you shouldn't expect people to speak English. I know a lot of people do. They go down to places there on the Costa del Sol or on the Levante coast, and they speak English as if they were speaking to native speakers. It is a little bit rude, but unfortunately a lot of people don't bother to learn the basics of the Spanish language. And let's be honest, it isn't difficult to learn a little bit of Spanish, even to ask in Spanish if somebody speaks English, ¿habla usted inglés? And even with a simple sentence like that, a lot of doors will open. Want to hear from Ken? Cool, I like it when you speak Spanish. But how much more difficult would it be for you to understand Spanish spoken to you in Andalusia? Yeah, Ken, thanks for the comment. It all depends on what your level of Spanish is. I don't really have a problem to travel around Spain and listen to the different accents. I seem to understand every type of accent here in Spain. There are some parts of Andalusia where they speak a little bit differently to the rest of the country, for example in Cádiz and Malaga, but it's just a question of time of training your ear to that local accent. I've spent a lot of time in Malaga over the years. I used to go there quite a bit before I started going to Portugal. And I remember when I first heard the acento malagueño, it was a little bit difficult to understand, but you get used to it over time. One here from Alvaro. Don't you think it's quite surprising that you've gathered a sizable Spanish community in your channel to the point it's viable to make videos in Spanish? Honestly, I just find it interesting to see a foreign point of view about Spanish affairs. And I think that it is something that many Spaniards are interested in, what other countries think of Spain. We usually consider it a huge deal when we appear in foreign newspapers, whether it's for good or not. Yeah, thanks for the comment, Alvaro. I don't think I have a big enough audience of Spanish viewers to warrant videos in Spanish. I think that a majority of the viewers come from an English-speaking background. I know that there are people here in Spain that do watch the videos in order to improve their English because I talk about things that are relevant here in Spain, and it's a good way for people to learn and practice their English. And it's also a good way for people to practice their writing by writing comments like this one in the comment section. However, I will take your comment on board and I could set something up in the Spanish language. I said yesterday that I'm going to start to do a few Spanish learning videos to help people learn Spanish, but maybe I could start putting these videos out in both English and Espanol. I'll look into it. One here from El Bib. Linares is nice, Stuart. People are earthy, friendly there, also a bit cheaper, less hectic than the major cities. Yeah, El Bib, thanks for the comment. Linares is definitely on my radar, as are some other cities in Jaén. Unfortunately, a little bit too far away from the coast, but you can be down in a place like Malaga fairly quickly. I also imagine that Linares is a bit cheaper than Madrid, people are a bit friendlier, and no doubt a lot less hectic. And finally, one here from JMG. I bet you'll move to the north of Spain. Every time you go there, I see you very comfortable. Yeah, JMG, thanks for the comment. You're right. Every time I go to the north, I am very comfortable. I love the north of Spain. I love Cantabria, Asturias, the Basque Country, Galicia, everywhere in the north of Spain. Castilla y León, also a fantastic area. You probably saw some videos that I did earlier in the year when I visited that part of the world. I had a great time there. I love the greenery, I love the food, but unfortunately it's a little bit too wet in the north of Spain for my liking. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.